Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, episode number 191 of Let's Go Racing. Tyler Jones, Dominic Aragon here with you. Another win for SVG. Shane Van Gisbergen gets it done at Sonoma. Back-to-back, 3 wins on the season, tying the most for all drivers in the NASCAR Cup Series. We'll talk about that. We'll also look ahead to this weekend's race at Dover as well, and get to our news and notes as well as our mailbag segment at the end of today's show. Dominic joins me right now. Dominic, what a run for SVG. I know that it's on road courses, but I'm still impressed with the rookie season he's having. This is the best rookie campaign we've seen in a very long time. What a job by SVG to find a way back to victory lane again.
I think the last time, Tyler, that somebody had 3 wins in their rookie campaign, I think you have to go all the way back to Tony Stewart in 1999 in that rookie campaign. Fourth in points. Very impressive year and a very impressive run that SVG's put in here. And of course, the balance there, how's he going to do on the ovals? We know he's improving. We'll talk more about that here later on in the show. But 4 wins in his career, 3 just this season. Was Sunday, in your opinion, the most impressive victory yet we have seen from SVG? Because I think it is.
I think the Mexico City one was with how big he won that race by.
Well, that
But
too. Yes.
but this one was impressive too. All 3 of them were.
All 4 have been very impressive.
But I look back at this week's race, for example, and you have all these cars that took 4 tires, and here he is staying out there, and to hold them off, and it didn't even feel like that there was much of a chance for the cars with 4 tires with the advantage they had on SVG. It helped that there was cars that stayed out and gave him a bit of wiggle room there. And I thought it was dumb that not everybody came down pit road and tried to get tires to compete with SVG. I thought that was some bad crew chiefing by some of those teams to make that call that they did. But with that said, like, there's just something different about this guy. I said this a couple weeks ago, and I'll continue to reiterate. I think we might be looking at the best road course driver in the history of the sport. That's how good he is. And to take it even a step further, Dom, some might say, okay, are the road course drivers in these other series just that much better than NASCAR drivers? Are NASCAR drivers not good road course racers? And I would counter that and say no, because we've seen other guys try to do what SVG's done and not have even close to the same success. I mean, AJ Allmendinger is a world-class driver, and he has 3 wins all time, all in road courses. And SVG's already reached that amount. Juan Pablo Montoya did not come close to that success. Even other guys that have great road course backgrounds that have tried the NASCAR thing as of late, like, Jamison Button and, Jordan Taylor and others, like, none of them are. He is a unique talent.
And the argument I've seen, I'll counter it, but I think at the same time too, the numbers don't lie. Matt Yoakum was talking about earlier this week. How, okay, this is impressive, but Dan Gurney did 5 wins and 16 starts. But then you're also looking at a time when you look before the modern era, and you're looking in the 60s and the 70s, somebody who was racing at a time when there were a lot less competitive cars. You brought up the point last week, Tyler, that SVG is doing this, and I think too in a more impressive era because, like Hamlin has said too on his podcast, these are spec cars essentially. They're the same piece of equipment, and SVG is still able to outshine. Chase Briscoe in his post-race comments had said too, more or less, that he felt like at least when he got side by side with him, or at least had a chance on some of those final restarts, that SVG would just start pulling away. So maybe even SVG was holding back a little bit and still not showing his full hand. The only driver I think that could have had a shot, but he overdrove turn, I think they call it 1A or 1B, technically turn 2, as you go up the hills, Chase Elliott with about 2 or 3 laps to go. He was on those fresher tires. He was chasing down SVG. If there was a restart, if that race had gone to overtime, maybe we'd be talking about Chase Elliott and finally winning in the next gen vehicle on a road course. But that'll just be up for debate. But nonetheless, SVG looking stellar and stout as ever, and 4 career wins now in the Cup Series. 3 have come this year. He could earn 1 more before the playoffs start with the Watkins Glen race in a few weeks. But wow, Tyler, what a repeat of last year. He won 3 times and ended up advancing to the next round of the playoffs in the Xfinity Series. Who's not to say he could do that here? I believe he has 17 playoff points too. So he's going to be seated at the very worst sixth on the playoff grid, seventh on the playoff grid. That's going to be very good.
Yeah, he's in great shape, and we have a Roval within the playoff as well. So maybe there's a chance for him to advance even further potentially if he wins that race at the Roval as well. But yeah, it's been quite the run for SVG, and he's getting more comfortable in this Cup car too. I think the ovals are making him better at the road courses with the experience he has in this vehicle, and he's getting better in the ovals too, week in and week out. So, yeah, it's been quite the run. Let's take a look at the updated NASCAR playoff picture. Um, William Byron, Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell, Ryan Blaney, Chase Briscoe, Ross Chastain, Joey Logano, Austin Cindric, Josh Berry, and Shane Van Gisbergen all have wins, and they are in the playoff, barring anything crazy and us getting 17 winners. Then the player drivers in on points right now. Tyler Reddick appears to be in great shape, 149 ahead of the cutoff. Chris Buescher, 34 points ahead. Alex Bowman, 32 points ahead. And then Bubba Wallace, 3 points ahead. Ryan Preece has had a good run the last few weeks. He's only 3 points out. And how about Kyle Busch with what he's done the last few weeks? Out of nowhere, all of a sudden, he's just 37 points back. AJ Allmendinger, 50 points back. Ty Gibbs, 60 points back. Dom, let's start with the guys that are above the cutoff right now. We mentioned Reddick in good shape, but Buescher and Bowman are one bad race away from being in some potential trouble here. Bubba is treading lightly, to put it nicely, and it has been over 1,000 days since he's won a race. I don't know how likely it is that he's going to get back to victory lane anytime soon. I don't think any of those three drivers there, Buescher, Bowman, and Bubba Wallace, should feel too comfortable right now.
If you're Tyler Reddick, you should feel comfortable. In fact, I think those comments were made to TNT during the race week, and they don't feel safe. The 45 team does not feel safe with their on-track activity because they haven't won a race yet. And Reddick's very capable. Bubba Wallace is very capable of doing the same thing too. Those 2311 cars unload fast. They lead laps. They collect a lot of stage points. But now you're getting to a point where you have 6 races left, and anyone below you is going to bump you. And you very easily could have that. I look at this weekend at Dover. So last year, Kyle Busch won the pole and led a bunch of laps in that RCR machine. So that 8 car, you probably got to think he's going to be fast. AJ Allmendinger has been historically good at Dover. And we're not even talking Daytona yet. We're not talking Watkins Glen. There are a lot of wild cards still left in this regular season. We can still have a chance where you have a full grid like 2022, where you have 16 winners. Technically, we had 17 winners with the whole Kurt Busch situation. But point in case, I don't think we're done. You could still see some new winners in 2025, and that's only going to tighten up that playoff cut line more.
Meanwhile, on the guys on the outside, Ryan Preece, Kyle Busch, AJ Allmendinger, and Ty Gibbs. Credit to Ryan Preece. I think a lot of people had kind of written him off, did not think he deserved that RFK Racing ride, that he really hadn't shown much, and he's driving the best he's raced in his entire career right now. He's really emerged and come along. He might be getting to victory lane sooner than later. Kyle Busch coming out of nowhere, been running a lot better as of late. Still waiting to get back into victory lane for the first time in a while. We know that AJ Allmendinger is capable at these road courses. Watkins Glen coming up, and Ty Gibbs running much better as of late. Of those guys on the outside looking in, who catches your eye, Dom?
Well, that catches my eye the most, and I got to give you some flack for is Ty Gibbs because about 6 races into the year, we were riding him. Well, you were riding him off. I think I was concerned, but you were more so concerned. Are you shocked at how Ty Gibbs has turned the corner here lately? Are you still not convinced?
I am shocked, but I still need to see more. It's year three now. He needs to get to victory lane,
He does.
and that should be a playoff car. I would still say, Dom, yes, he's run better, but also that he overwhelmingly has underperformed for his overall body of work.
Oh, certainly. If his last name wasn't Gibbs, you can make the argument, would he still even have that ride 3 seasons in? Because Chase Briscoe gave a little peek behind the curtain when he won at Pocono. That when they were showing him the contract, hey, out of the 40 cars in the years that we've had this playoff system, there have been playoff appearances about 36 times or 37 times. They want you in the playoffs every year. So you're right. You don't perform, you're out of that ride. But Ty Gibbs, when I look at that playoff cut line and how much they've gained, There's some potential there, but it's going to take a victory. It's going to take Kyle Busch a victory. It's going to take anybody, if you're not Ryan Preece or AJ Allmendinger, and we have no new winners, you're going to need to step up and push out a victory in 2025 if you're making the playoffs this season. And there's a lot of capable cars. We know there's going to be some good cars that miss the playoffs, like a Michael McDowell, who ran what fifth at Sonoma. He could go out and win at Watkins Glen or Daytona. Brad Keselowski has been sneaky good this year. We know it's been a rebuilding year with his new crew chief, but so many good cars, Tyler. We have that parity that NASCAR's been looking for years with this next gen vehicle. Of course, you still have your top organizations, but there's still, even when you look at that top five and top 10 columns, those numbers are a lot more even. You don't have a driver in these 20 races that has more than 12 top 10 finishes, which that wasn't happening in the Gen 6 era of this vehicle. So NASCAR's got the parity it's looking for. We're not done with winners in 2025, at least new winners in 2025, in my opinion.
I agree. Let's take a look at the in-season challenge now. Ty Dillon does it again. Was able to bump and run Alex Bowman out of the way to advance, and he had a little extra motivation from Hendrick PR with the shot they took at him before the race, saying that it's over for Cinderella, and he said the slipper still fits. And then
He's very witty.
John Hunter Nemechek takes down his teammate Eric Jones to advance. That'll set up Ty Dillon versus John Hunter Nemechek. And then on the other side, Tyler Reddick beats out Ryan Preece. And then Ty Gibbs, who you talked about, beats out Zane Smith. So that sets up Reddick versus Gibbs. Let's start with Ty Dillon and John Hunter Nemechek. Just like we all thought, right? These two, Ty Dillon and John Hunter Nemechek. This is the best moment for each of them in their careers to be in the final four of this in-season challenge to advance the way they have. And Ty Dillon, there wasn't a whole lot of hope or excitement about him in that ride. And going into 2025, and Kaulig Racing was down. They were not meeting the expectations that had set. I think this is a big deal. And this is pretty awesome for Ty Dillon to be sitting here in this position. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility that he could win this whole thing here.
Oh, not at all. Not at all. And we saw a full race play out because we didn't really get the chance to see a full race of Ty Dillon head to head versus his competitor. Hamlin wrecked out in stage 2 at Atlanta. Keselowski wrecks on lap 4, the Chicago Street Course, or lap 3, whatever it was. And we actually got to see a full race play out, that little bump and run. It reminded me of the 2016 finish with Hamlin and Tony Stewart. And he kind of threw that left rear quarter panel into Bowman's right front fender as they left the hairpin just to, hey, I'm here. I've cleared you. I'm going on to the next round of this thing. And the wittiness that we've seen out of Ty Dillon, too. Gosh, the smack talking, like Hamlin said, let him have his moment. He's been having his moments, and this certainly has been a highlight of Ty Dillon's in the NASCAR Cup Series as of recent memory.
Oh, yeah. And then on the other side, Tyler Reddick and Ty Gibbs. Two guys we mentioned still looking to get to victory lane this season. Tyler Reddick's got a lot of regular season points. Ty Gibbs has run better as of late. Going to Dover here, I would lean towards Tyler Reddick, but let's see if that 54 team can continue to build some momentum as far as that goes.
But either way, whoever advances out of that tournament, you know that these two, in theory, are probably going to be running inside the top 10 at the end of the race. And whoever advances on, like we talked about last week, there's still people in this tournament, all 4 cars, none of them have won a race yet this year. And probably the most shocking to me out of that would be Tyler Reddick because they have shown the speed. But barring mechanical or some off sequence or a pit strategy at the end of the race, I think we do talk about Tyler Reddick advancing out of that. You can't rule out Ty Dillon. It's the Ty versus Ty show. And somebody also pointed out too, Tyler, all 4 of these drivers have driven behind the wheel of a 2311 machine in the Cup Series at some point, whether that be a points or an exhibition race. Really fascinating piece of statistic there.
Yes, for sure. Let's move on, talk Dover now. Dom, we used to race at Dover twice a year. Now we only make one stop as Nashville got this other date. And going to the concrete and all, a lot of history at this track, the Monster Mile there. This to me, it feels like one of the stalwarts of the NASCAR schedule. Like I know it's not a big market, but it's a track that has a ton of history, that's produced some great racing over the years. I don't know what type of race we're going to see with the next gen cars. It's not been great on these type of tracks as of late, but nonetheless, always exciting when the NASCAR Cup Series gets out to Dover here.
Never been to that track. It's one of the few I've not been to yet, and would really like to change that someday. You're not too far from New York City and Philadelphia in that part of the country, but great facility from everybody that's talked to me. You have the casino, you have the horse racing that has occurred there over the years as well. There's a deep history of Dover. I think since the 60s it's been on the schedule. Denny Hamlin was last year's winner. We'll get into the odds here in a second, but he's looking like he might be shaping up for potentially victory number 4 this weekend. As we mentioned, Kyle Busch was on the pole last year. You have the Xfinity and the NASCAR Cup Series tackling the Monster Mile this weekend. Should be a great weekend ahead of racing.
I always like the Sky Bridge where
Yes.
you can see the track while you're walking across and go into the casino too.
Yes.
A lot of good stuff there when it comes to that front at Dover. Also, you mentioned Denny Hamlin, and when I look at this track and the way that Denny has run on these, mile tracks or less this year, he has been the guy to beat. And you mentioned him being the defending race winner. I mean, I'll be curious what the odds are when we look at it later, but it feels like at least going into the weekend, no pun intended, but it feels like Denny versus everybody.
Yeah, Denny versus your favorite driver versus Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin taking down the world. Like I always say, Kevin Harvick versus the field a few years back. Tyler Hamlin's looking as strong as ever this year. I know we've talked about him fizzling out as we get towards the playoffs in this next gen era, and that seems to be what has happened. But it doesn't seem like that's happening this year. It's a different Denny Hamlin. He's refreshed. He seems like he's just taken the world hostage, if you will, and he has all of the world on his plate with what's going on track and off track, and it's just all chitter chatter. It's just all stuff he is able to cancel. These guys are professional athletes for a reason, but I think he does an even better job compared to most on canceling out the noise from the outside world.
Yeah, he does. He does a really good job of that. We'll get in the odds coming up later on. Stay tuned for that in our news and notes. Speaking of which, let's get to our news and notes this week, Dom. A lot happening in the NASCAR world. Where do we want to start?
Let's start with the battle off the track and in the courtroom there with Front Row Motorsports 2311 and their ongoing litigation versus NASCAR. So Wednesday, July 16th was the day that the teams were set to lose their charters because of the motion for the Fourth Circuit appeal. The U.S. court not going to take up a rehearing. So the teams on Monday, July 14th, refiled for a preliminary temporary injunction and restraining order against NASCAR to allow their charters to continue on. And Tyler, we haven't seen NASCAR really publicly comment on this litigation, this ongoing litigation. But NASCAR did stay in part with their statement that it is unfortunate, quote, it is unfortunate, instead of respecting clear rulings of the Fourth Circuit, 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports are now burdening the district court with a third motion for another unnecessary and inappropriate preliminary injunction. As both the Fourth Circuit and the district court suggested, NASCAR has made multiple requests to 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports to present a proposal to resolve this litigation. We have yet to receive a proposal from 2311 or Front Row. And they continue on with the statement talking about they remain focused on the remaining 13 teams with their charters and their agreements. And the part with the team statement here today, Monday, quote, we filed a motion in the district court for a renewed preliminary injunction and temporary restraining order to protect the team's ability to race charter for the remainder of the 2025 season and prevent irreparable business harm to 2311 and Front Row Motorsports until we can present our case at trial in December. And the quote goes on to talk about their love for stock car racing and they want a better future for all the parties, the teams, drivers, employees, sponsors, and fans. But we've talked about this. We know this is just gearing up. There's a lot more that needs to play out here in the courtroom. But this preliminary injunction, Tyler, the teams are obviously wanting to protect their charters. You have NASCAR. Would they sell off the charters mid-season? Or would the field reduce to 30 chartered teams? Does NASCAR shorten that? All of that remains unclear at the time of at least the taping of this podcast, but a lot that is playing out here in the courtroom.
So 2311 and Front Row are claiming that the new evidence that they're going to present to get this injunction is that they have been told that NASCAR already has plans in place to sell these charters as quickly as possible, which they
Yes.
believe, to their monopoly argument, justifies an injunction to keep their charters until the December trial is the case they're presenting. And Dom, I don't know if that's true or not. That's beyond our expertise. We don't have any reporting to know if that's true or not. But what I would say is, if it is true, there would be plenty of suitors out there that would want those charters. Now, it gets a little messy. Let's take example. Here's something I'll throw out there. Let's say Junior Motorsports. We know Junior Motorsports wants a charter. They want to get in Cup. They've made that known. If a charter becomes, and I guess in this case, 6 charters all of a sudden are open for sale, a team like Junior Motorsports is going to be interested. There'll be several others. But I do think there would be some hesitation from these teams of, well, do we want to make this purchase only for it to backfire potentially in a couple months and not be able us to have these charters? Like, there is a slippery slope here. So while I do understand if it's accurate where 2311 and Front Row are coming from, I do think that there would probably be some hesitation from these teams like, hey, we're interested, but do we all of a sudden want to put ourselves in this legal mess and make things potentially messy for us only to lose those charters that we just purchased a couple months from now? There's a lot of moving parts to this that's well beyond our pay grade. That's going to take legal scholars and experts to come up with here. But nonetheless, I think in the simplest of terms, could NASCAR potentially try to take those charters to market right away? Absolutely, they could. And I think teams would be interested. But I do think teams would be hesitant because, like, I think that they don't want to be wrapped up in all this and make a purchase that gets taken away from them in a couple months. Like, that's possible too.
Is it possible that this could just be a bargaining chip that NASCAR has on their side of the table? Maybe,
Yes.
maybe not. We don't know. You're right. There's so much in discovery that, and Hamlin talked about on his podcast too this week. There's stuff that their side that NASCAR has that's all redacted that was discovered and discovered. So I think they'll all be learning too, alongside with all the attorneys that are privy to this information. We'll find out more in the coming days, in the coming weeks. But this is certainly a big distraction from the on-track product this weekend at Dover. I'm sure this is going to be talked about on the broadcast. It's going to be brought up in interviews. And I do find it very interesting too. You hear usually when somebody gets sued or there's a lawsuit going on, people kind of shy away from it. But Denny Hamlin has been very, very transparent about the process, whether that be in his podcast, his media availabilities at the racetrack. He's not shying away from it, which I do find is a very interesting strategy in itself.
It is. And then, so we're expecting, from what I understand, a ruling on the injunction by Thursday before the race weekend begins. And if it goes, I think, and again, I'm not an expert on this, so take this all with a grain of salt. By the time you may be listening, I may be wrong on this, folks. That's very well possible. The judge that is overseeing this injunction was the judge that ruled in favor of 2311 on an injunction months ago. So they already have that kind of, legal advantage in this of somebody that's already, gone their way. So that helps them out in that sense. But with that said, if it doesn't go their way, then they're going to run as open teams. They potentially could have to give up a portion of their purse of the money they've made already from this year of being ruled not charter teams early on in the season. It's very unlikely we're going to have too many races with more than 40 cars the rest of the year. So they should still be able to make every race, but their purse amount would not be nearly as good. And it just makes life a hell of a lot more difficult to operate as a business here. This is a very shaky time for 2311 and Front Row going into some uncharted territory, because so far up until this point, Dom, maybe they haven't gotten all the rulings that they've wanted, but they've operated normally. Each team got the charters they purchased from Stewart-Haas Racing. each team has still operated as charter teams. And, everyone stayed. I know there's like a clause in some of the contracts with these drivers, like Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace, that they can get out of their contracts if they're not with a charter team. Everything to this point has operated as normal. If they lose their charters this weekend, then all of a sudden everything changes where they are not running as a normal operation. Sure, there's been a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, but this would be the first time that the day to day operation could change.
So much is at stake with this. So ahead of the race weekend, we'll move on to the odds for this race weekend at NASCAR. Tackling the Monster Mile at Dover, who's the odds-on favorite, Tyler? What are their odds per the Caesar Sportsbook?
I'm going to go Denny Hamlin, probably about 400.
Oh, you're the man. You nailed it right on the money. Denny Hamlin plus 400. Your odds-on
Nice.
favorite at 4-1. Kyle Larson, your second favorite, 4.5 to 1 or plus 450. Ryan Blaney plus 600. William Byron plus 650. Chase Elliott at plus 900, rounding out your top five of your shortest odds. Ross Chastain, who ran second here a couple of years ago, plus 1100. Christopher Bell plus 1400. Kyle Busch and Tyler Reddick each at plus 1800, and Chase Briscoe at plus 2000 to round out your top 10. And as you work your way down the odds, some of your long shots or longer odds rather would include Joey Logano at plus 3,300, Bubba Wallace at plus 6,000. You have Cole Custer, John Hunter Nemechek at plus 2,500, Ty Dillon at plus 100,000 or 1,000 to 1 in that in-season bracket challenge, but that's to win the race. So those would be some of your odds-on favorites to long shots and everybody in between.
So I like Denny this week, but if I had to pick another driver to keep a tabs on of sorts, um, that could really shake things up. I like the way that Kyle Busch has been running as of late. Um, this might be his opportunity to end that winless streak and lock up a playoff spot. The 8 car has my attention.
Man, I think we're on the same wavelength this week. I think after seeing how strong they were last year at this track, Kyle Busch has some momentum. Two spins and rebounds for top tens the last 2 weeks. We know road courses are way different than the roundy rounds, but there's some momentum that comes with that. That 18 is shaping up a lot better than what we have seen mid-season from the last couple of years. Give me Kyle Busch to get back to victory lane as well.
Okay, there you go. That's our picks for this week there at Dover. Let's get to our mailbag segment this week. You can submit questions to us each and every week. DavidStarPodcast@gmail.com. Also on X and Facebook at Star Podcast. You can find us there. Our first question in the inbox this week, it comes from Dave. And Dave wants to know, in his question here, he is asking, what do you think of the playoff tracks right now? Do you like the 10 tracks, or would you like to see other tracks involved in the playoff? Don, we'll start with you.
That's a great question, Dave. Man, there's some good rotation that we've been seeing from NASCAR over the last years because about 2017, 2018, the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series era, it seemed like the schedule got somewhat stale if you're looking at it from that aspect. Maybe you make the argument too that it's nice to know what you're going to tackle and the best of the best come out every year, but it's also nice, in my opinion, to see rotation. And you look at what we have this year. You have Talladega mixing it up in the middle of the round of eight. You have a road course with the Charlotte road course there, but you don't have Atlanta opening it up. You have Darlington taking that traditional spot back as the opening playoff race. You have Bristol, track with a lot of history. I had said for years, Tyler, that Bristol needed to be a part of the playoffs because of how historic that facility is, and it is part of that playoff rotation. It's good. In my opinion, it's good to mix it up. It's good to see different variety. Personally, I love seeing Phoenix as the finale because that is the closest track that I can drive to and I can sleep in my own bed after that race on Sunday night. But it is also nice to get some rotation like we're going to see with Homestead back on the schedule in 26 and then a rotation after that. So it's good to have variety. It mixes it up. It also is like the same variety of when you look at the NFL schedule and the NFL playoffs, it's not the same team seeded every single year and not the same team that has home field advantage every year. So there's always going to be variety to mix up with that. It's nice to see that. How about you, Tyler?
I look at the playoff tracks this year. It's not a bad lineup. With Darlington, I like that we're going to St. Louis in the playoff this year. You mentioned Bristol, New Hampshire, Kansas, Charlotte, road course, Vegas, Talladega, Martinsville, and Phoenix. What I think when I look at like in the future here, um, Martinsville, I think I would take out. I don't think Martinsville needs two races anyway. I would also, as I'm kind of looking this piece by piece here, Charlotte, I think that after this year, we're probably done with the Roval. I think we're going to go back to the Oval, and that probably stays a playoff race. Um, and then, looking at some other tracks that I think would be good for potentially adding to the playoff in the future here. Um, you know, I could see as I'm looking at this, we know Homestead's already coming back. I would like if we're not going to run the Roval, I would like one of these road course races, maybe two road course races to be potentially in the playoff. Like maybe Watkins Glen could move to a playoff date potentially. Um, as a possibility here. That to me I think would be very good. But otherwise, I know we talk schedule and all that a lot, and changes that we would make and everything. I don't think the playoff schedule is that bad, to be honest. Maybe some more variety of, because you think about this. If we're trying to determine, here's my thought on this, Tom. If we're trying to determine a champion and the playoff is supposed to be, in theory, you know, how do we crown a champion of making this the most diverse and challenging playoff we can? But also, you have to think about too that time of year. There's a limit on certain tracks you can go to due to weather and such, things getting too cold and all that. Like, I would want to diversify the schedule of let's make sure we get a variety with a road course or two. Let's get a drafting track in there. Let's get the ovals and let's get the short tracks and try to find that balance. And I do feel like even though the playoff schedule's not bad right now, I don't think there's enough balance of making it as much of a challenge as possible for what the playoffs should be.
Maybe it's a proportion, maybe it's a math formula that you look at. And if you look at the regular season, there's X amount of road races and ovals and short tracks and super speedways. You take that formula and make it proportional in the playoffs. And I feel like they've tried to do that. I know it's not going to be perfect every single year, but maybe you have a second road course. And that's another topic too. We've seen a lot of people talking, well, is six too much? Is that the sweet spot? Personally, I think that's the sweet spot. Now including a road course in the playoff, of course, that was something that hadn't been for a long, long time. It took it till 2018 to have a playoff road course event. So it's good to have that in there. Maybe a second one to balance out even more. But I don't know. It's that's what makes this topic great. There's 100 ways that you can discuss. You give the schedule a blank schedule to 100 people, you're going to get 100 different answers.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great point. Next question comes from Chance. Chance wants to know, guys, who do you think is most likely to win the championship right now?
Man, some really hard-hitting questions this week on those fan mail questions. When you look at that, okay, we start with Cup. It's really hard right now, Tyler, because your drivers that won earlier in the year, you know they're going to be good in the playoffs. But maybe there's more R&D going on right now. You're trying things that maybe you wouldn't have tried if you weren't in a position because you've already won. But how can you go against somebody like a William Byron or Christopher Bell, who know they've for months they're going to be racing in the playoffs? Denny Hamlin, somebody like that. My preseason pick was Christopher Bell to win the championship. I still think he gets to Phoenix as a contender. Watch out. Christopher Bell and that track have something figured out. You look at the Xfinity series, how can you go against Justin Allgaier or a Connor Zilisch to go and make some noise? But I would think Allgaier's looking really good to go back to back. He can go out and come back from almost 2 laps down in a backup car like how he did in November. Justin Allgaier's in good shape. And then you look at the trucks, very hard to root against somebody like a Corey Heim, but we've seen him not perform on some of those big moments yet in the truck series. We saw him miss the race at the Cup Series event in Chicago. We know those events make an athlete stronger, but I would think Lane Riggs, if he has a chance at Phoenix on that Friday night, Lane Riggs could be the truck champion this year.
I'll give you three names for each. I'll go with Kyle Larson. I think he's still the best to beat, best driver in the world. I know that he's had a little bit of a slump right now, but the playoff tracks look pretty good for his liking. Xfinity side, I think Justin Allgaier is going to be the guy to beat. He can run well anywhere, especially at Phoenix. And then Heim time, like he's just on another level compared to everybody else in the Truck Series right now. I think that he's going to be the guy to beat as far as that goes. But yeah, so we'll see how it plays out. Dom, what do you got going on this weekend, man?
Very excited to get back on a playing stage. As many of you know, I've played in a band over the years, and three of us are reuniting to play a one-off show at one of the local casinos in a Battle of the Bands type of event. So that's going to be a lot of fun to get back on stage. You all know how much I enjoy getting behind a drum kit. If there's anything I enjoy a little more than racing, it might be playing music, and it'll be really fun to get behind a drum kit. So very much looking forward to that. I'm hoping that turns into some more opportunities. We'll hit the recording studio from time to time. We'll practice, but it's been fun to be practicing regularly, and you realize how much you miss when you step away from playing a musical instrument for a while. So should be a lot of fun. We play a lot of classic rock. Our that's kind of our sound. So hopefully we come away with a podium finish this weekend at that Battle of the Bands.
I love it. I'll be reading you guys on. I'm off to Phoenix Saturday for the Native American Basketball Invitational. It's an event I do every year. I'll be out there for a full week, and um, an event that's very dear to me at this point. We get to promote these Native American athletes, and some of them this is their first time even off the reservation, and they get to play in the same arena as the Phoenix Suns and the Phoenix Mercury and compete for a championship and tell their stories and broadcast that. So that's one of my favorite events I do every year, and I'll be doing that here next week, and should be a great time and seeing a lot of people I know and enjoying myself, taking a little vacation of sorts too. So it'll be all good. So I will not be here next week. I don't know if Dom's going to be here doing a show or not next week, but I will be off. And I'll see you back here in a couple weeks, my friends. But as always, subscribe to the show. New episodes out each and every week. Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. Leave us a 5-star review or don't leave us one at all. Hit us up on social media at Star Podcast on X and Facebook. Also by email to david@gmail.com. We'll put the checker flag out on this edition of Let's Go Racing. For Dominic Aragon, I'm Tom Jones saying so long. It's been another edition of Let's Go Racing. We'll see you next week.